I was making soup when the message came in. Not dinner soup. The kind you make when you don't want to think too hard about anything. The phone buzzed against the counter, a sound I've learned to associate with mild dread. The text wasn't from my sister. It was from her boyfriend. No greeting, no context. Just a sentence that assumed agreement. Get me the Vern 500 phone or don't come to Christmas. I read it twice, because sometimes shock feels like illiteracy. Then I wiped my hands on towel and typed one word. No. That was it. No punctuation. No explanation. I watched the 3 dots appear and disappear, like he was reconsidering whether I deserved more than a follow-up. Instead, my sister chimed in seconds later, as if she'd been waiting. You should feel lucky we even ask. That was the moment something settled instead of flaring. I didn't feel angry. I felt tired in a very specific way, the way you do when a long-running misinterpretation finally clarifies itself. For years, I'd thought I was being generous. Apparently, I'd been auditioning for a role I didn't know I'd accepted. I didn't reply. That part mattered more than it looks. Silence, for me, has always been a kind of muscle I forget I have until it's needed. I set the phone face down. The soup simmered. The house did what houses do when you don't ask them to witness drama. It stayed quiet. Later, when the evening thinned out and the light in the kitchen turned blay, I let myself remember how we got here. Not in a montage way. Just fragments. Covering a deposit when my sister moved. Paying a bill. Just this once. Lending money that never quite returned but always resurfaced as expectation. Her boyfriend, newer, louder, confident in the way people are when they mistake proximity for authority. He liked to say things like, "We're family now," which always meant "you're useful now." I went to bed early. Not out of sadness, out of clarity. At 11:17 p.m., I sat up with my laptop. The house was dark. The quiet felt cooperative. I didn't do anything dramatic. No confrontations. No speeches typed and deleted. I pulled records. I checked dates. I read fine print I'd skimmed earlier because trust is a time saver until it isn't. There were 2 things they relied on without really understanding how. I had set both of them up. Not out of control, out of competence. Accounts, authorizations, guarantees. The kinds of things that feel invisible when they work and very loud when they stop. I made one phone call. It wasn't to my sister. It wasn't to her boyfriend. It was to an office that doesn't care about family dynamics. The person on the other end was polite and procedural. I stayed calm. I asked for exactly what I was entitled to ask for. Nothing more. Is this effective immediately? I said. Yes. They said without emphasis. I thanked them. I slept. By morning, my phone was vibrating itself toward the edge of the nightstand. I didn't answer. I brushed my teeth. I made coffee. At 80:42, a voicemail came in. I didn't play it. At 80:57, another. At 90:03, my sister texted, "Call me now." That was new. Usually it was "can you" or "we need." This was a command, and it came too late. I was sitting at the kitchen table when the screaming started, not in my house, but through the thin, digital wall of missed calls. I could hear it even without listening. Panic has a shape. It accelerates. It repeats itself. They'd hit the wall I knew was there and they hadn't. The authority I'd contacted did what authorities do best when everything is documented: it enforced. No negotiation. No emotional allowance. A clear decision delivered by someone who doesn't know our last name. I listened to the first voicemail then. My sister sounded frightened, then furious, then strategic, all in under a minute. Her boyfriend's voice broke in at the end, loud and unfocused, as if volume could change policy. I didn't call back. That's the part people misunderstand. They think silence is passive. That it means you're overwhelmed or afraid. But this silence had done its job. Anything I said now would only soften an edge that needed to stay clean. By noon, the tone changed. Apologies appeared, oddly phrased. "We didn't mean it like that. You know how he gets. This is really bad timing." None of them said we were wrong. None of them mentioned the phone. I thought about Christmas. About how rooms hold memories, and how traditions survive mostly because no one challenges their assumptions. I knew something would collapse. Maybe not the holiday, but the illusion that my presence was guaranteed regardless of how I was treated. In the afternoon, I replied once. "I'm not discussing this today." That was all. The fallout didn't resolve neatly. It wasn't supposed to. Power rarely evaporates, it just rearranges itself. I knew I'd be painted as cold, controlling, overreactive. Those are the words people reach for when access is revoked without permission. But something else happened. Quieter. No one asked me for anything the rest of the week. When I thought about it later, what surprised me wasn't that they screamed. It was that I hadn't needed to raise my voice at all. I hadn't needed to punish or humiliate or explain my worth. I had simply stepped out of a role I never agreed to play. Christmas would come. Or it wouldn't. Either way, I'd be eating something warm, in a house that knew how to stay quiet, with a phone that no longer buzzed like an obligation. And that felt like enough.